Welcome to Mornings with Mayesh. I'm your host, Yvonne Ashton, and I am excited to be live with you today. For those joining us for the first time, this is your go-to destination for all things floral design, industry insights, and inspiring conversations with incredible designers who are shaping our floral community. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Ashley Overholser of Primavera. She's also our final 2024 Mayesh Design Star. We're diving into a powerful conversation about the intersection of floristry, creativity, and personal growth. Ashley's journey from discovering flowers as a path to healing to building a successful corporate floral design business is both inspiring and instructive. We'll explore her creative process influenced by the artist's way, and we will get her expert insights into the world of corporate floristry. For those watching live, we encourage you to engage with us in the comments, share your questions, thoughts, and experiences. We love to hear from you. Now, let's welcome our special guest, Ashley. Hey, Ashley.
Hi. Hey,
Welcome.
everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, we were just chatting, but I just wanted to say thank you for being our final 2024 Mayesh Design Star. Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much. It's
everything.
such an honor.
Yes. And just for everyone that is listening, we have Ashley's final video coming up. It'll be either the end of the week or early next week. A little inspirational, festive holiday install for the holidays. So super excited about that.
Yeah, so excited to share that with everybody.
Yes, for sure. So before we get started, Ashley, just in case there are people that are on here and they're new to you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your flower story?
Yeah, so my name is Ashley Overholser, and I am the owner and creative director of Primavera, a floral direction studio in Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, I guess prior to my career in floristry, I actually worked in a very different industry, as most florists do, I feel. I actually worked in global development and humanitarian aid. I had a passion for conflict resolution, and just wanted to work with underserved communities. And I knew what I wanted to do since I was very small. My family hosted international exchange students when I was little, and so that really exposed me to different countries and different cultures, different personalities. My house was basically a mini United Nations at all points in time. And so that really sparked my interest in international relations. And so I sort of delved into this international career, and it brought me to a lot of countries and places and spaces. And so I've been very fortunate to have worked all over the world, pursuing that particular passion area. And I ended up moving to Atlanta from the Middle East during the end of the 2014 Gaza war. I was living in Israel, Palestine at the time. And when I came back to Atlanta, I didn't know anybody. I was pretty isolated. My parents had just moved here, so I was staying with them. And I just was feeling really isolated. I had witnessed a lot of trauma and loss and sort of systemic injustice. And that really was trying on my mental health and my mental wellness. And so I decided to take a year-long sabbatical to focus on my mental health. And I am bipolar, but at the time I was really struggling with severe depression and war-related PTSD. And so, I checked myself into an outpatient trauma center, and I started doing the work and knew that I needed to focus on inner healing and also just take the year to kind of figure out, okay, like, do I want to continue in this career? Like, I had carved out this life for myself that I absolutely loved, but it was psychologically draining. It was affecting my mental health. Like, it was an opportunity as well to explore different pathways and different opportunities and possibilities for my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that because I feel like a lot of people can relate to kind of just figuring out mental health. And, from, what I've read in our blogs and just our conversations before, I know that your journey with flowers is very personal. So can you tell us about the role flowers played in your healing and recovery process after you've gone through all of that?
Yeah, so I actually discovered flowers in the springtime. So obviously there were flowers growing everywhere. The leaves are just starting to sprout. It was getting warmer again in Atlanta. And I remember being on Instagram actually and coming across this florist in Atlanta, and she had the most beautiful arrangement I had ever seen in my life. I was absolutely stunned. And I just remember like in a very depressed state. I think I was like in my pajamas, just like, not really feeling it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And I just like messaged her on Instagram and was like, hey, do you need any help? I would love to be surrounded by beautiful blooms all day. And I just remember the feeling when I stepped into the floral studio for the first time. Like I was surrounded by so much beauty, like it hurt, like
Right.
I just remember being so like astounded in the fact that like this could be a career. This is something that, you do on a daily basis. Um, and I discovered that cutting and arranging and placing each bloom became kind of a ritual for me. And I learned very quickly that floral design is a very linear process. So it was very satisfying. Like you start with a mess of flowers, you go through this creative process, you design, and then you create a product, which you can see that's very tangible. And then you can sell that product versus wartime and conflict where it's very cyclical process. Maybe you're building piece, building piece, building piece, and then like war happens, and then there's post-conflict reconstruction, and it seems never ending sometimes. There isn't really an end in sight. And so for me, just like the creative process was so fulfilling, and like I just felt like my journey with flowers didn't just help me to survive, but it gave me a way to thrive. They really became like a medium for healing, and for just rediscovering beauty, like within myself and within the world. And I think it also was like a testament to like the transformative power of like the creative process. Like I remember, taking long walks in the morning, and just seeing the trees and seeing the flowers growing and the birds singing. And it really brought me to the present. And there is environmental philosopher and botanist, John Muir, and I always remember this. He said, I only went out for a walk and finally concluded that for going out, I find that I was really going in.
Yeah.
And I just like, I love that quote. And because I founded Primavera during the springtime, that's why I called it Primavera, because Primavera means springtime. If you look at the Latin root, prima means first. It means like first life, like a rebirth. And I felt like that was like the perfect word for me to like name my business, because I was going through this process of kind of recovering and rediscovering a new part of myself. And it was, in a sense, kind of a rebirth,
Yeah.
and I feel like that, yeah, that name just really spoke to me.
I love that. Very lovely. And I feel like people can again relate to the healing abilities of just nature in general. I know when I'm having a tough day, I need to just get outside. I need to go to the beach. I need to go, take a walk in the woods or something like that. And it really just helps kind of recenter. And every time we do like a whole family beach day, which is a lot of work, but at the end of it, we're always like, why don't we do this more? Just because it's just so soothing, about being with nature. So
Mhm.
I love your story. I think that's amazing. Um, I understand Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, has a significant impact on you. How did this book influence your approach to floral design?
Yeah. So in The Artist's Way, the author speaks about the process of like creative emergence. And they talk about mourning sort of the self that we abandoned as we align closer to the artist within us. So it basically means that, I had this former self, this past self, the humanitarian inside of me, the person who was passionate about conflict resolution and did this certain type of work. And there was a mourning process that I had to go through, where I was really like saying goodbye to that part of myself and moving closer, uh, and becoming more aligned with the artist within me. And so I knew that I needed to create a space for, a kind of transformation to happen, and just kind of figure out like, um, my creative identity. And I kind of learned, and I like to encourage people to think about self definition. I think that it's really important to expand our self definition. Like, we're not necessarily locked to one thing. I can still have a humanitarian heart and also be a floral designer, and like, I
Right.
think like that, it was a time for me to really, begin again. And I think that as an artist, Julia reminded me that it's impossible to look good. Well, get better and look good at the same time. So I always tell like fledgling florists, I'm like, it's not going to be perfection. Like when you're just starting out, when I was just starting out, like I wanted to be like this perfect florist where I knew everything and I knew exactly where to place each bloom. And I wanted everything to be like a particular, just like standard of like
Right.
perfection. And I think that, it's impossible to get better and look good at the same time. It's also like, okay to just begin again and learn and be new at something, and give yourself permission to bloom fully, literally, bloom
Yeah.
fully to like that version of yourself, and be kind to yourself, because I think we are our own worst critics. And I think it's important to make sure that, you're designing for you and that it's your creative process. And the product, it's about the process, not the product, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, flowers are beautiful. You can't really mess it up too much. um, so, I just, yeah. And I think also just practice the joy of creating,
Right.
and I think that, I always tell people, oh my God, like this book changed my life. Right. And Julia always has this thing where she says, no, I just gave you the tools. Like you changed your life. And so I think like I would just like encourage everyone to like just take those words to heart, because like you are the designer, and the artist of your own life, and you can create any kind of self definition that you like. And so for me, like florals were like flowers is just a part of like that journey for me and has become the thing that I do as a career and that I'm really passionate about.
I love that. I really love that. When I looked up the book, because wanted to give you guys a link if you wanted to check out The Artist's Way, there was a New York Times article written in it. just like the headline and the Google results is, I used to cringe at self-help books until this one. And so, that's pretty cool. And there's some other articles out there too. But yeah, check out that book. And 'tis the season, right? For, I feel like, reflection and kind of thinking about how you want to evolve over the next year. I'm not always a big one for setting New Year's resolutions or anything, but I like figuring out what are my next steps in life and how do I want to, be a better person. So
Yeah, and the
yeah,
book is a
checking.
great way to really delve into, like, the artist within you, and
Right.
she has this thing called morning pages where every morning you just write out, like, she has, like, prompts, and you can just, like, write out your thoughts about, like, okay, like, what does the new me wanna look like? How do I wanna evolve? How do I wanna cultivate my inner artist, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So guys, if you're listening, are you going to check out this book? Let me know. I want to hear. Also, what you were speaking about just kind of reminded me of Christy Holsey a little bit. She would always say when we were working together with her, one of our past design stars, she would always say, it doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful. And that was like
Mhm. I
her,
like
she would
that.
say that about everything. And we were like, we need to make shirts with that. Because
I
that's like
agree, we should make a
such
Mayesh
a,
shirt and just, like,
yes.
totally promote that. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. It's a great way to kind of keep in the back of your mind when things are getting heavy. Like it just doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful, whether you're doing flowers or anything else in life.
Absolutely.
So fun. Okay. So for Mayesh Design Star, we selected you because you focus on corporate work. So what kind of led you to focus specifically on that path in floristry, when there's so many other different paths that you could select?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a funny story. My first ever client that reached out to me, and I also think it's a branding thing, which we should talk about as well. But my first client that reached out to me was a multi-million dollar company. It was Poopery. Do you know Poopery?
Yes, the spray. Yes.
Yeah, it's a bathroom spray.
Uh-huh.
And they came to me and they said, "We have a toilet. Can you do something with it?" And I was like, "What?"
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and so my first ever job, like for my own business, involved uh, putting like toilet paper at the bottom of a toilet bowl and then sitting a kind of a vase like on top of it, filling it with flour, like with water, chicken wiring it, you know, and basically making this beautiful arrangement that like flowed out of the toilet. That's kind of like that was the concept. Um,
Awesome.
and I remember I brought my girlfriend at the time, and she was just helping me, and it was just a flower mess, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do like every single day of my life. Like I was like, this is such a fun creative project, and they gave me so much creative freedom. And I think it also went down to the fact that like I had sort of branded myself as somebody at the time that was looking to do more corporate work. So
Mhm.
I didn't just have like I wasn't wedding central in my website.
Got it.
Yeah.
So
But
poopery, huh?
yeah. And then I kind of just like fell into it. And I think the reason that I also went into corporate kind of floristry is that it came down to wanting a certain lifestyle, and also financial security. So, we can talk about that a little bit later, but I think that those were like the two things for me that I wanted out of my life, and working in the corporate world kind of just like gave me that flexibility and the financial security that I was looking for.
Yeah, and for corporate work, what would you say like makes up, like, I know you work with like hotels and I think restaurants and some other
Mhm.
things like branding stuff, like what you just mentioned. So like what does that split look like for you? Do you know?
So I focus primarily on restaurants,
Hmm.
and I have had a hotel account, and then I do a lot of brand activation work, some corporate events, but I'm kind of staying away from the event world recently. I started doing some corporate events when I started out, and now I'm really focusing in on sort of my weekly corporate subscription services as my main business model. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Very, very cool. Someone wants to know if you can share a picture of your poopery design. You got that anywhere?
You scroll all the way down to my, like, it's literally like the first picture on my Instagram.
On Instagram? Okay, so let me send the Instagram link, and if you want to do that scroll, you can check out the poopery design. So that's amazing.
Super cute. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And also, by the way, someone on Instagram, Peg's Garden, said she just ordered the book. So
amazing. Yeah. You should talk with me and we can have a literary discussion about it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, book club time.
Yes, absolutely.
And that also reminds me, there's a group, I'm in a WhatsApp group called Women in Floristry.
Ooh.
I don't know how to invite people to it, like to the group, but I will try and figure that out. But anyhow, they have like a book club, and they have books that they read. I have not done it because I was traveling, and then my parents came into town, and I've been off, so it's been a little crazy. But I will get into that. But yeah, I will suggest this book to the group too, and then I will try to figure out how to share that with all of you guys as well.
Yeah, it's so relative for just us being creatives and artists and designers. So yeah,
that's amazing. Okay, so we talked about corporate floristry. Can you walk us through kind of what a typical week looks like for a corporate florist? Like, what might surprise people about this specialty?
Yeah, so I think, so my week, I have like a 3-day week, which is awesome. Like,
amazing.
Lifestyle is what I'm all about. And I had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 restaurants that I did in 3 days. Like one after the other, spaced out. And it was great because it just let me have like a lot more flexibility, where I had the weekend and a couple days off. And I think that the nice part with restaurants is that it's pretty, unless they're like a really huge restaurant, you're doing 1 to 2 arrangements, maybe some bud vases. So when I'm at a restaurant, it really only takes me maybe 1 to 2 hours at the most, plus the time to get the flowers and come back. So maybe I'll share a little bit about what a day in the life looks like. And then I can kind of explain the rest, because I think it's important for people to know kind of where the flowers come from and kind of what that process looks like. So basically, like, I wake up in the morning and get my my flower shine on, and I go to Mayesh. I actually pull flowers directly from the cooler, so I don't pre-order flowers. So I get the flowers from the cooler for that day. I design everything in my head, like in the cooler. Literally, I'm like, okay, what do I have access to today? Because it's always changing.
And you kind of showed that process in your first video that you did with us too. So if you guys haven't watched that, check that out. I'll put the link to the blog. Just wanted to put a little plug in there for that.
Yes. And then I just go to the restaurant and I design everything on site. So I actually don't have overhead. I don't have a studio space, which is awesome. Again, saving all the money that I can.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so they give me a little corner, or I get like their dining, like private dining room area, or even in the back where the kitchen is. I literally just make a big flower mess and then clean it up, and I do the job. And so I think that's like a little bit about kind of what the day looks like. And then I think usually what surprises people is that, I have like it doesn't take that much time. Weddings, events, it's a lot of time. It's a 3-day process usually. Like, there's proposals and all these things that go into the wedding design process and the wedding planning process and being on site and all of that. And for me, it's really just that 1 day, to 3 days that I work, and you just kind of like do 1 to 2 arrangements per restaurant. And yeah, I think that you make more and work less, which is how I like it and what I
Yeah,
like about it.
that's really amazing. Do you have like an inventory of like vessels that you use that you like might rotate, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we when a client first is onboarded, we pick all of the vases and vessels for the space.
Okay.
And then at some points, I always do feedback sessions every quarter with my clients, and also to check in about seasonality and like whether, oh, Valentine's Day is around the corner. Do you want to do anything with that? Like, but also like they might want to change out their vases, and maybe do something a little more festive or change the color scheme. So you always want to check in with your clients every couple of months and just make sure that they're happy with the work that you're doing. I literally had a client once who they were like, we want to switch to tropicals. And I was like, what? Like, you don't really have a tropical vibe, but it's
Right,
like, that's what they wanted. And I
right.
got to deliver, and make it work, So, yeah.
That's very cool. So when you were talking about like the typical week, I know you were talking about like you love that you're not you have like a 3-day work week pretty much. Is there anything else that you find like super rewarding about corporate floristry that other florists might not realize?
I think building a personal relationship with my clients. It's a long-term relationship. I
Right.
have 1 to 2 year contracts, with each of my clients, and kind of, um, yeah, just being able to create this like relationship and be able to have uh, sometimes weekly communication with them. Make sure that you do those feedback sessions and make sure that they're happy. But they also like building that trust means that you get more creative freedom,
Hmm.
because they trust you to create something really beautiful that aligns with their brand and aligns with their interior. So I think that's one of my favorite parts about like
Yeah.
being in the corporate space is that creative freedom and then that relationship that I build with my client. It is very
Yeah.
personal. Um, so yeah, it's nice. Surprisingly, because it's corporate, but like I make really good friends with the managers and the cooks and everybody knows who I am.
That's great. Do you get like perks like, some meals and
Oh,
yummy food out of it and all of
oh yeah.
that too?
I went, when was it? I think I went to dine solo. I like dressed up and dined solo for my birthday, and went in this fabulous dress, and the cook saw that I was there and he gave me like a free octopus dish. Like he like gave me like 2 extra glasses of wine. And I get wine and dine. It's very nice. And I
I
do
love
get a
that.
discount because it was a restaurant group. So I get like a uh, even though I'm a contractor, like I still got like a little discount. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
always feel really
amazing.
spoiled.
Very cool. I just saw a question come through on Instagram from
Mhm.
Make Bouquets Happen. They would like to know, how do you win your accounts? How do you
Ooh,
land
that's a
those
great
restaurant accounts?
question. Okay, so securing a corporate client is probably one of the hardest marketing like initiatives that I've ever done.
Right.
It is a process. It's not like a bride that comes to you and says, I want to work with you, and you give them a little proposal, and that they have a budget, that their wedding is going to happen at this date. Like, so the corporate client, sometimes they don't know if they really want flowers. They're usually kind of like one toe in, one toe out, just like, okay, um, you need to convince us why we should hire you to do flowers and why we should even have flowers in the first place. So, a lot of it is educating the client about the cost of flowers, educating the client about like the process, like, oh, I work on site and like this and that. And like, I think also it's really important to note, we think, um, yeah, to give you an example, like I had a hotel that had come to me, looking to potentially do flowers, and setting up a meeting is like impossible. Like these managers are so busy. Like it just, I think that process for the hotel took me a month and a half just to get the meeting, to give them the proposal, to go over the proposal, and then for them to say yes or no. So it's a lot of personal and professional investment and relationship building that goes into securing that client. So it's honestly, that's not my favorite part of the job. The sales aspect is so hard. But once you land the client, it's so worth it. And you get that 1-year contract. I encourage you to go for a 2-year contract and you're set, you know? But it takes, I mean, you know, I'd say like 50% of what I do is sales. Because I want to grow my business. And so, yeah, it's tricky. But yeah, I just be patient with the client and with yourself and just know that, you know, if they push back and say they don't have a budget or they're not sure if they have a budget, like I don't know, there's always a way to like start small, versus saying like, okay, you can, here's like, you know, a $10,000 option for you. It's like sometimes you're intimidated by that. And you can say like, hey, you know what? Let's do a 3-month little trial period. We'll do like 2 arrangements a week and we'll charge this much. Is that something that would work in your budget? And so sometimes giving them, if they get scared, like giving them like a smaller option to start and still do a contract for those 3 months with opportunity to extend. I think that's also like a really smart thing to do.
Yeah, totally. So you said it takes about a month-ish to land like a new client?
Yeah. It takes, and also like if they don't, there's a difference in the experience if they come to you, because you know that they probably already have a budget. If you go to them and they don't have a florist, yay for us. But it also means you need to convince them and find the right point person. I think, you know, sometimes sales and marketing for hotels is who you're supposed to talk to. Maybe it's the GM who has the final decision. Maybe they need to go to corporate and ask corporate first. It's a lot. So finding the right point person is like the first step. And then getting that meeting. It's so important to get that meeting. Go shake hands. Go into the hotel. Go into the restaurants. Like introduce yourself. Shake hands. Get that meeting on the spot. If you email them and say, let's get a meeting, they're not going to email you back. Like you have to be very forward and like get all in their business and not be afraid to like kind of push them a little bit and say, hey, I'm here. Hi, I'm Ashley. Do you remember me? We talked last week.
Yeah. I love it. And I feel like that kind of answers this question that it's coming through from YouTube. Hey, Sage, saying, do you have any recommendations on how to cold contact restaurants for florals? It's really just going in there, shaking the hands, figuring out who you should be talking to and, you know, any other suggestions?
Yeah, I would say, especially it's more important to go in person first.
Right.
But sometimes what I do is I'll cold call and just be like, hey, like, you know, sometimes I even say I'm doing like I'll say like I'm a research student, you know, doing research on like hotels and budgets or whatever. And I'll just be like, I just was curious, like, do you have a florist? You know, you basically just like make up something and just be like, you want to know if they have a florist or not. Because, and then you can always ask them like, oh, if you're talking about it from a, you know, floral designer perspective, then you would say like, oh, like even if they have a florist, oh, are you happy with your florist? You know, can I send you, you know, maybe even a sample? Sometimes that works too. But I also don't encourage it because it's a lot of money up front and you don't know if you're going to get a return on that investment. But that is something to think about, is like sometimes you can show up with some flowers and it could be a little bud vase and just be like, here you go. They'll remember you.
Got it. Got it. Another question came through. It says, can you please share ballpark how much a month of 2 weekly deliveries looks like with a corporate client? Month of 2 weekly deliveries looks like. Does that make sense?
Let me see. How much a month of 2 weekly deliveries? Hold on. Oh, so like if I had 2 arrangements per week for the month?
I think so.
Okay. I would say, so for each of my restaurants, I make a profit of 1,000 to 2,000 a month. And that's it depends. Sometimes it's 800 a month.
Right.
It depends on how many arrangements you have. So if you have 1 arrangement, it's usually like, you know, 200, 250 a week, or 150 a week, you know. And then when you add that up, it's usually between 800 and 2,000. And with hotels, it's totally different ballpark of pricing. And
right.
And I think, you know, most hotels, like the minimum you should be making, even if it's just for 1 or 2 arrangements, is like 2,000 a month.
Good to know.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are curious about like, what does that actually look like money wise, you know? So thank you for sharing that, because I know that's personal too.
No, I'm an open book. So that's how much you should expect to earn.
Very cool. For designers considering corporate work, what key skills or qualities would you say are essential for success? I know you've talked about a little bit about them already, but anything else?
I think from a designer, or like being like more of a senior designer myself, I think for like younger designers, it's important for them to know how to, everybody has a brand, everybody has a style, right? So let's say, you know, I'm a little bit more, I would say modern, avant-garde, but there are some restaurants that I work for that are looking for tropicals or a more traditional floral design. And I think that it's really important to know how to design different types, like in different ways. So for example, like if tropicals aren't usually my thing, like, and this restaurant has a tropical theme, like you got to do tropicals even if you hate it, like that's just the way that it is. And so just being able to like adapt your style in different ways, I think is like kind of one kind of important tidbit that I would offer, is just make sure that, you know, you're always designing based on the brand and the interior of the space, and always keep that in mind, because you don't want to put tropicals in a room that is dark and moody and Victorian-esque, you know, like it wouldn't work. So yeah, always like keep that in mind.
Yeah. And then on the business sides of things, because it is more corporate work and you are dealing with more businesses rather than just people,
Yeah.
I feel like kind of like professionalism and like, you know, how you present yourself, whether it's like invoicing and systems and things like that. Do you feel like that needs to be really well thought out, you know?
I mean, always, I mean, professionalism is key, I think, within any industry that you're in. But I do believe that it's important. Like I try to like, you know, wear all black, you know, or maybe have like a shirt that has my name on it so that
Right.
people know who I am when I come in. Relationship building is a big part of what I do. Get people in the restaurants comfortable with me, knowing that I'll be there every week, and trying not to get in people's ways. And sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, I was just thinking like about, you know, if we're dealing with businesses, I'm thinking like we need to make
Oh,
sure that we're super
professional.
professional, like the systems we use, email, how people connect with you, making sure you have a really nice website and even like invoices, like how does that look? I've worked with like certain like industry professionals that they're like, oh, do you need an invoice? Type of thing where I'm like, yeah, we need an invoice. So it's just kind of thinking
Yeah.
about those
I
things. I
think
know like,
synchronization across platforms from a design and branding perspective is key. I think
yeah,
that everybody should do that. And just create a system for yourself that works. I submit my invoices weekly, and they look the same every week. And let's see what else. Trying to think of like other ways. Just being available all the time.
right.
They're paying a lot of money for like 2 arrangements. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, like, you gotta be, if there is a rose that is dying, you shouldn't use roses, by the way, they don't last very long. But if there is a rose that does not look good and they send you a picture, you'd better be on that day or the next day. I think that shows trust, between
Right,
client and designer, and it shows that you're a good hustler, and that you make things happen when they need to happen, and that you're not just being all like, oh, I'm coming in tomorrow anyway to refresh it. It's like you do it, and you get it done as quickly as possible, and you try and stay invisible. That's the one thing about corporate work. Be invisible. Like, you just, if they say that, like, oh, this particular flower is wilting, go replace it the next day or that day and be invisible, and they'll be super happy.
I love it. I love it. We have more questions, which I love. Someone just says you're amazing, so just wanted to share that because that's always good to hear, right? We
Thank
have a
you.
question from Michelle B. Carroll, and they want to know what is the typical lifespan of your corporate clients? Do you have that
Um,
information that you want to share?
yeah. So do you mean like I have 1 and 2 year contracts?
Yeah. So
That,
do
and
they?
they renew the idea is that unless otherwise, it renews every year.
Mhm.
That's how I frame my contracts. Um, my restaurant group, it's been 5 years.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, and again, it's just building that relationship,
Right.
and making sure that if something's a change, like, you're on it. Um, and yeah, because you need to be the best at what you do. Otherwise, they're going to go find another florist, and
Yeah.
always have like a contingency plan, because you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket and have one restaurant group and be like super good and happy and just like, you know,
Right.
dallying around in life. And then you lose it. And then you only have one other client and you're not making as much money. So
Right.
I'll always make sure that when you're, putting a business structure together, that you have multiple sources of revenue generation. It's super important. You don't want to be at a negative because you lost a client.
Yeah.
Always give a 4 to 6 week notice in your contracts. I always say at least 6 weeks notice so that you can have time to make a plan for and adjust financially.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, so you mentioned kind of like, if there's a dead rose and they send you a picture of it, like take care of it. Someone wants to know how do you like maintain their arrangements, like for example, removing dead flowers, especially with not having like a cooler, like what you were mentioning, like how do you do that logistically?
Yeah, so it's really important that you learn about what blooms last and what blooms don't last. So you need your arrangements to last between 3 to 5 days, typically.
Hmm.
In some cases, not a lot of cases, because they don't want to pay for it. But you can do a midweek refresh, right?
Hmm.
So they'll send a picture of the arrangement. I'll look at it. I'll go to the flower market and do a midweek refresh. But otherwise, you want to use blooms that last. And so you'll kind of, and maybe that's something that we can do with Mayesh is, and give them just like a list of what blooms last longer than, and then like the yeses and the nos, you know, and
Yeah,
the maybes, like the if you want to chance it, here are some other ones. But
that
yeah,
would be lovely. I know people like those types of lists for sure.
yeah. So I think that, just making sure that that you use long lasting blooms.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome. People are asking about your company name, and someone did reply already, but Ashley is from Primavera, and I will share her Instagram link to again in the comments. Unfortunately, when I comment here, it doesn't go into Instagram, but it's primavera.blooms is what her handle is on Instagram. So definitely go check her out. And then I have one more question talking about hiring. So, in terms of hiring some help with processing the stems for prep, what have you found as a reliable resource? Do you outsource that work, or do you do that all on your own?
so I do all of the processing on site. So
Okay.
what I do is they literally wrap all the flowers for me uh, and in like paper, and then I literally take it to the restaurant on site, and I do all the processing of the flowers. I make a big mess, and I design, and then I clean up. And right now, I'm a one-woman show, and if I want help, I have a list of freelancers um, that I can call who are trained. Make sure you train the people that you work with. You don't want to hire some random person to take over your business, because your business is your baby. So, and your clients are multi-million dollar client, they're very well off and very high end. And so you need to make sure that you hire somebody who is very professional, who can represent your business in a really professional way, who knows your brand and who's familiar with the restaurant already. So I do training. I do a training with every single person that I work with, so that when I'm sick, I can call Jessica and be like, Jessica, I'm sick. Can you come in and do this restaurant? And I know she's already done the restaurant before. She has the name of, Primavera, like on her little shirt that I gave her. So people know who she is. And I always say, be really warm, be really welcoming. You're invisible, but if people say hi to you, say hi back, smile, be like super, like just they're representing you. It's
Right.
a bit different when you're in the wedding industry. You're kind of like just you're not interacting with people that you just want to make a good impression. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right.
Um,
And you need to be able to, take a vacation once in a while, right? So
oh yeah,
you need that support.
absolutely. I was like, oh, when I'm sick. No, I was in Europe a couple weeks ago because I can,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting when you also are growing your business, because that also means that I'm at a point where I'm starting to be at capacity. So like it could be that I, hire a manager part-time
Right.
to run my business, which is really exciting to think about. So, and that comes with its own, challenges and whatnot, but growth is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so you know, everyone is very excited about getting that list of longer lasting blooms from you. So
Okay,
that's
we'll
your
do it.
homework over the holidays.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. So my last question for you, Ashley, is can you share a challenging moment in your corporate floral journey and how you overcame it?
Yeah, oof, challenging. I mean, I'm just gonna be like so honest and just like real. Like I I did the thing where I put all of my eggs in one basket.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I was comfy. Like I was very comfy, and I got complacent and I didn't look for new business. And so after a 4-year stint, um, they unexpectedly did not renew the contract for that year. And that was like 70% of my income.
That's devastating.
Yeah, it was awful. And the worst part is that it was so unfeeling. It was so impersonal. Like, I got an email and they didn't tell me why. And I still actually don't know to this day. And I also kind of don't want to know, but I'm like,
right.
But I'm also like, it wasn't personal. Like, they just cut me off. They didn't give me a 4 to 6 week notice. And so I did end up charging them for that, but like they didn't want me to do flowers anymore. So that was probably one of the most challenging and like the hardest lessons that I had to learn, was that, number one, working corporate, sometimes it isn't personal. Like,
right.
It's business, and it's cutthroat out there. Sometimes you get feedback, sometimes you don't. And I think the most important thing is to make sure that you are being the best version of your business self that you can be, because then at the end of the day, you did everything that you could to be the best at what you do. And yeah, I lost that client, and I was devastated. I could barely, it was hard to get back on my feet. So I think that was really hard for me. And I think the one thing that I learned from it, like I mentioned, is one, make sure that, you have a contingency plan, have emergency savings. If you don't have emergency savings yet, then make sure that you have 2 or 3 other clients. I would even encourage you to, like, literally, let's say you have a restaurant group here, and then you have like 4 restaurants over here, and you're both making like the same amount of money, right? So like, if you lose these guys, you're like, okay, I'm okay for a little bit, So
right.
just kind of just be like smart about it, and I think next time, or the next time, that I just always like, there's always an opportunity for new business and for growth, right? So not to like scare anybody out there, but like, it can be cutthroat sometimes. So
no, I think it's great that you're sharing that, and for people to think about everything. Honestly, I've learned so much from you just in this short period of time. So this has all been amazing. And I feel like people are excited by what you were saying. So many great comments. So this was a great, great episode. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy to share all of my experiences, and I'm an open book. So if anybody wants to just like DM me or shoot me an email, if you have any follow-up questions, like, I want to be somebody that is, just accessible, and somebody that, even if you want to talk about the artist way, like, I'm totally like here for it.
Awesome. So I gave everyone a way to connect with you. I reposted the Instagram, your handle. So it's primavera.blooms. And then you can go check out her website. It's primaverafloralco.com. And you can connect with Ashley after this. And obviously, I want you guys to stay tuned for Ashley's 3rd and final video for 2024 from Mayesh Design Star, where she's going to walk you through a festive holiday hotel install. So I'm looking so forward to that, and I cannot wait to share that with our community. Ashley, any final words before we wrap up?
I would just say, stay true to who you are. Like, flowers are healing and really got me through a rough time. And just, just like really lean into the creative process, because I think sometimes we get a little bit preoccupied with the end result and the product. And I think just leaning into the process is just so important, as a creative, as an artist, as designers. So yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Again, thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you guys for tuning in. And before I totally wrap up, I just want to take a moment and just express my heartfelt gratitude for all of you who have made Mornings with Mayesh part of 2024. And if you've been with me for a while, then the rest of the years too. Your dedication to tuning in, engaging with our guests, and being a part of this incredible floral community has made this year and other years just really, truly special. It's one of my favorite parts of what I get to do and something that I'm just love, love, love. So again, whether you've been with us since the beginning or just discovered us recently, your support has help create a space we can share knowledge, inspire creativity, and strengthen our floral industry together, which is amazing. That's one of the things that Mayesh loves to do. And obviously to Ashley and to our guests who come in here and just bare their souls and generously share their expertise and their experiences, and to our listeners who make time for us in their busy schedules. That's just thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yes, yes. You're the reason we keep doing this and doing what we do, and we just can't wait to bring more inspiring conversations and valuable insights in the coming year. So here's to you, our amazing floral community, and to many more mornings together. And again, I want to wish you a very merry holiday and a happy new year. Stay tuned for the next show, and I will see you all in 2024.